Alright, the first step is you need to remove the motor from the mount. Now it's best if you can prop something like a piece of wood underneath the motor because you can see it's heavily weighted and will rock to the back. So you're going to need the 7/16 Allen wrench and the 9/16 box end wrench, and simply remove the bolts. Sure that you don't lose the washers and the rest of the hardware, because you're going to have to reinstall this motor when you're done. Now it can be a little trickier because of the one in the rear. This is open though, so you can get the box end wrench down on top. Simply remove it. It is a much longer screw, so it'll take a little bit of time, but that's what you need to do first. For this next step, we're going to remove the 1050 from the bench, and we're going to place the AmmoBot base over the same hole pattern as the 1050. Bolt the base to the bench and then bolt the 1050 on top of it. For this next step, you're going to need the hex head bolts, 2 washers, one thick, one thin, lock washer, and the 7/16 nut that fits it. And you'll also need 2 wrenches, 7/16, so a box head and an open head. It's very simple. Through the thick washer, through the 1050, thin washer, lock washer. One nut. There. Now that's all finished. Time to bolt the motor on. For this step, you're going to need the 7/16 Allen key again, and the 9/16 box end wrench, or the 9/16 AmmoBot wrench that's included. Just like removing, it's best to use a block of wood or some other item to prop the motor up to make it easier to mount. It's usually easier to begin with the long bolt in the back. And there's 2 washers and a lock washer, 1 washer on each side, lock washer to the inside. Then the 2 shorter bolts in the first 2 mounting holes. You don't want to tighten them completely yet, because you're going to need to make some tension adjustments when you mount the control wheel. Just tighten them up enough to bring the plates back together so it no longer needs to rest on that mount, on that block of wood underneath the motor. Now the motor is installed. Next thing we're going to do, for those who have bought it, we're going to install the small primer detector. To do that, we're going to have to remove the spent primer catch bracket and the swage, and that's the next steps. So to remove the spent primer bracket, we're going to need a 1-inch Allen wrench. So remove the bracket. We'll be replacing this on with a level 10 spent primer chute next. You're going to save the screw, set aside the bracket. Get it started, get it a little snug, not completely tight. Push the bracket completely up against the tool head there so that all the primers will fall in the chute. Tighten the bolt. Now this is absolutely necessary for using the small primer detector, as you'll see in the next step. So for the small primer detector, you're going to need a 5/32 Allen key to remove the swage station. We'll be reusing these bolts and this bracket, so don't lose them. Set them aside. Next, after removing the bracket, this cotter pin, this works really well. Just pull it, doesn't take a lot of force, comes right off. Set it aside, don't lose it. Then remove the pin by sliding the mount out slightly and pressing against the pin. It will slide right out once you get a hold of it. This is now freed and this is now free to move. The Dillon manual says to pull the handle off, pull this off completely. It's not necessary, you can do it without removing the handle. Just slightly engage it and turn it, and it will remove itself. You may have to move the handle in position to get it out of the way to make the space necessary to remove the swage. Out it comes. Set it aside. Now to set the new one, it's just a reverse procedure. The reason why you had to replace the primer chute is the leads from this small primer detector would not be able to, the bucket won't actually fit. So I'm going to slide this back up. First things, take your 1/8 key, reach inside and the 5/32 key, reach inside and loosen so the rod has play. Slip it up, Slip it in. Roll that back. Just push the pin back through it. Reinsert the cotter pin. All to it. When everything's set up, we'll adjust this so that it operates correctly. For now, it's finished. Now the next step is we're going to remove the screw that holds the handle in and replace it with a longer one. The bracket you pulled off that holds the swage station, reinsert that. Tighten it up. The next step, we're going to remove the screw that holds the handle in. Hold the handle, because it is heavy, and remove the screw, it will fall. Take your 3/16 Allen key, remove that screw, set it aside, don't lose it. Take the long 3/16 hex screw that's found in the parts kit, screw it in and tighten it up. Sticks out because this is where the control head's going to mount. Excuse me, the control plate. Now we're going to mount the drive plate. Very easy. AmmoBot up. The chain on the sprocket. And that longer screw that you put in there is going to fit in the center of the plate. Let's pop it on. Notice the chain is still loose now. We're going to adjust it later. If you have a hard time placing it, sometimes moving the handle slightly back and forth will move that screw enough to catch it where it is if you have too much tension here. That's why it's best to have this set about the top. That way there's plenty of loose slack in the chain. Now to make sure that stays on there, grab the large washer and a large acorn nut. And just hand tight for now. The next, grab the U-bolt with the acorn nuts, lock washers, and standard washers. This is going to go around your handle like so. Reach down behind. Come from underneath the swage station, place the U-bolt. Regular washer, lock washer, acorn nut. Now using your 5/8 box end wrench, go ahead and tighten that acorn nut down. Using your 7/16, go ahead and tighten up the rest of the acorn nuts on there. Now time to ready the tension on here. So again, using your 3/16, your 9/16 box. Excuse me, 7/32. Loosen those two nuts. Push down until you have 1/8 to 1/4 inch of tension in the chain. About that much. You have it there. Hold. Tighten. Make sure your tension's still there. And then tighten your third, the main bolt. In the rear. The main physical part is now done. Now we'll hook up all the electrical connections. Next step is to remove the low primer alarm. For that, you're going to need the small Phillips head screwdriver. Turn it so you can reach this small screw in the back. Remove that screw. Be very careful not to lose it. It is small. That will loosen this enough to allow you to remove the alarm. So you don't lose the screw, go ahead and just tighten it up, set it aside. For this next step, setting the home switch, it's easier to pull the handle down so you can get to this bolt you need to and get it out of the way. Next, using your 5/32 Allen key, I'm going to remove this screw from the primer system. I'm going to reuse it so don't lose it. Set it aside. That will be the location for the home switch. Place the plate in that location using that screw. Go ahead and screw it down. The powder coating on the plate may make it a little difficult to push that screw through. Just push a little bit, it will break through the powder coat and be fine. I'm going to tighten this screw down now. This is adjustable. Go ahead and set it all the way to the back for now. This is the home switch, and the handle will come up on the reverse stroke and set this switch. When you receive this, this piece here will be absolutely straight. We've had to add a bend to this one for this particular machine's geometry. We had to bend this out so it would make contact at the top of the stroke. Depending on which generation 1050 you have, you may be okay with leaving that and not bending it. This is a brand new 1050. It was just produced this year, and we've had to bend this out. To bend these, be very careful. It is a very stiff metal. 2 needle nose pliers is probably the best way to bend this if necessary. You also may need to stack washers under this nut and raise this in order to make that work. The next thing to set is the low primer alarm. Again, using that Phillips head screwdriver, loosen that screw there. Place it on top of the primer tube. Slide it on. And tighten that screw so it stays. Now we'll move to the opposite side and we'll set the drive up. Simply take the large gray box, find a good place on your bench for it, put it into position. Your standard power connector, and a connection to the control box. Now it's simply a matter of plugging in cables. So the first cable from the motor, bring the cable up and install it to this port. Be careful not to bend the pins, it only fits one way. Make sure it's fully seated. Screw it down nice and tight. Now the control box, its power supply. Notice the pins are different. Take the lead from the drive box. Notice that it's a 5-pin to 5-pin. Nice and tight. The control cable. These are keyed, so it's hard to get them in the wrong place. Make sure that you have set them though. If it's rough going in, don't push it. If you have the small primer detector, the blue connector to the blue connector. The yellow connector is empty for now. That's for accessories that will be coming in the future, like the small primer flipper. Next connection, power cord. And then extend it to your power supply on the bench. And that's for the main setup. This next step isn't needed by everybody, but some find it improves reliability of the entire system. There's a ratchet assembly here that makes contact. Well, as the AmmoBot drives, the ratchet assembly isn't nearly necessary and can cause it to hitch at the very top when it goes to drive it back. It's very simple, easy to remove. You need your 1/8 inch Allen and a flat-bladed screwdriver. The first step is to pull the ratchet back. You may or may not see a detente ball that's there. There's a flathead screw on the back side of that. If you turn it to the left, it will push out. And lock the ratchet in that hole. Now that the ratchet's locked, pull the handle down so you can see it. You take the 1-inch Allen, slide it in. Carefully remove that nut. It will spring. Now there is a spring back here, so you need to maintain this unit so it doesn't fly away while you're doing this. There's a washer around that screw as well. Don't lose that either. Once that's out, grab the screw in the washer and remove this assembly. Set it aside. And it's much easier not to lose screws when they're in their holes. Go ahead and just push that screw right back in the hole it came out of. Now you can either go back and release the tongue ball, bring this pin back, or you can leave it there. It doesn't matter, it doesn't interfere with anything. Okay, now that we've done some final tidying up, zip tying up the lines and Velcro line the lines up and making sure everything's out of the way and nothing's is impeded. Power's been applied. Remove the red safety as per the instruction manual. Get ready. Pull the handle down. Hit auto. Should be running fine for you now. Remember, this switch, the switch should be in your hand while this is running. If anything goes wrong, push the red button and it stops. Hope this has made it easier for you to install your AmmoBot. If there's any questions, please contact us or AmmoBot over Facebook. Thank you.